Hello and welcome to Chapter 13 of the PowerPoint presentations. This one is on preparedness and emergency management. As we have learned through our recent pandemic and a number of natural disasters that have occurred over the last 10 to 15 years, catastrophic events can occur at any time and any place. Examples of such disasters here in the United States over the past 100 years are listed in the timeline in figure 13.1. And these are just some of the major disasters that have occurred, not taking into account some of the minor things that have also occurred over the last 100 years. Most disasters follow a certain pattern or phases as illustrated in figure 13.2. The key to managing a potential disaster in a hospital setting is mitigation. Anticipate the effects of a coming disaster and develop a plan to minimize loss of life, structures, and utilities. Another phase is preparedness, which may go beyond the hospital setting and require developing training programs for the community, public awareness, logistical support and communications, early warning and continuous monitoring. Implementing a coherent time-critical plan will assist in minimizing damage and saving lives. And the fourth and final phase is recovery, where there are actions taken to return to a normal state both in the facility and community. The federal government is responsible for coordinating the response efforts of a national emergency. Through the Department of Homeland Security, or DHS, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, is charged with activating and coordinating the federal response. FEMA has access to vast federal resources, employs a large number of people, and as Table 13.1 indicates, has 10 well-placed regional offices covering the entire United States. This deployment of resources allows for a quick response in any disaster. Figure 13.3 gives you a sense of how FEMA has evolved from its creation in 1803 until now. Although it was created by Congress as a result of a large fire in New Hampshire, it wasn't until 1979 when President Carter signed an executive order officially creating the agency with the provision of certain powers. Established by FEMA, the National Incident Management Systems, or NIMS, sets the standard for intra-agency coordination at all government levels to ensure there is a consistent and cohesive approach when dealing with disasters. Figure 13.4 provides the components that make up the NIMS system. The NIMS components, as shown on the previous slide, are cascaded to all levels of government agencies and society as a whole through what is known as an incident command system. The ICS system is illustrated in figure 13.5 and can be activated at any time either at the local or federal level, depending on the severity of the disaster. ICSs are structured in a way to manage an emergency. The text, specifically pages 390 and 391, provides more detail as to the functions of each component that make up the ICS. Emergency management in healthcare is a natural phenomenon as it deals with a variety of emergencies, both individually and at times collectively on a routine basis. As COVID-19 revealed, when it comes to treating disease, healthcare is at the forefront. At a global level, the World Health Organization is charged with monitoring disease and surveillance. It serves as the lead agency for the United Nations and is tasked with strategic planning and coordination for disease outbreaks among its member nations. Although this agency has been successful in its charge, it has been heavily criticized for its handling of the COVID-19 pandemic. On the national front, the Centers for Disease Control, or CDC, is responsible for the collection of data and recommends standards of treatment during an outbreak. It works closely with the WHO, sending and receiving relevant health information. This exchange of data on a frequent basis is an effort to monitor and assist with preparedness should the need arise. The CDC maintains an Emergency Operations Center, or EOC, at its Atlanta office. Although it is monitored on a 24/7 basis, it is only activated when there is a public health emergency or threat facing the country. Figure 13.6 provides a historical activation timeline of CDC's EOC for public health and disaster events. While it may be hard to argue that the climate is changing, there remains a fierce debate as to what are the causes for these changes. Leaving the political and scientific debate aside, a report from the U.S. Global Change Research Program, as illustrated in Figure 13.7, highlights examples of how climate change can impact human health and, in its own way, create an emergency. The Global Research Report, as described here in Table 13.2, lists several key findings that align with scientific research. I provide this slide for your detailed review. The U.S. National Health Security Strategy is the government's plan for protecting the populace from 21st century health security threats. This plan is updated every 4 years. It consists of a three-pronged approach in planning for health security preparedness in the country. They are identified as prepare, mobilize, and coordinate the whole government, protect the nation from health effects associated with emerging and pandemic infectious diseases and chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear threats, and thirdly, to leverage capabilities in the private sector. To serve as a roadmap to realize its goals, the federal government developed the National Health Security Strategy Implementation Plan of 2019-2022. As depicted in Figure 13.8, the authors of the plan cited 4 broad areas that were key to success of the security plan. They include services, guidance, direct support, and capacity building. Although one could argue that access to care in urban and suburban areas is critical, it is even more so in rural areas of the country. One of the major challenges for rural residents, and in essence requiring providers to be in somewhat of an emergency mode at all times when delivering timely care, is the lack of adequate and appropriate transportation when needed. Figure 13.9 provides a flow model for the relationship between timely transportation and health outcomes for Americans living in rural areas of the country. As you can see, emergency preparedness is not just about pandemics, internal or natural disasters. Figure 13.10 provides a visual on how various applicants may apply for funding through FEMA for emergency preparedness and possible disaster recovery funding. As you can see through this flow chart, there are ample resources available to providers, both hospitals and other healthcare providers, that will help you in your emergency preparedness planning. To conclude, This presentation was meant to supplement many of the concepts provided in the text. As you read through the chapter, you will discover much more detail on this subject matter. Additionally, I've included a video that depicts the day in the life of an incident commander who is a key member of emergency preparedness planning. Even if you work in a hospital and are familiar with emergency preparedness planning, I think you will find this short video informative. Here ends the PowerPoint presentation for Chapter 13, and I thank you for listening.